For the past 9 days, we've carried out some of the most powerful and complex military strikes and maneuvers the world has ever seen. We're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective. And some people could say they're pretty well complete. We've wiped every single force in Iran out very completely. Most of Iran's naval power has been sunk.
When even Fox News starts airing segments that openly question the cost, purpose, and consequences of this war, you know the White House has lost control of the narrative. And it is not just liberal media, not just anti-Trump commentators, and not just Democrats raising alarms anymore. When voices inside conservative media begin asking the same basic questions ordinary Americans are asking at their kitchen tables, that is when you know something has shifted. Because the question is no longer whether this war can be defended with talking points. The question is why this administration still cannot explain, in plain English, what exactly the American people are supposed to be sacrificing for. That is what makes this moment so politically dangerous for Donald Trump.
We continue to target Iran's drone and missile capabilities. Their drones are way down. Their drone manufacturing has been hit starting today. But 2 levels of leadership are gone. Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. So it's obviously been very, very powerful, very effective.
President Trump, they're updating House Republicans on the conflict on Iran at the annual Miami retreat as Operation Epic Fury is entering day 11. The president hailing the campaign as a success, saying it is very far ahead of his initial 4 to 5 week time frame. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats are threatening to force another vote on President Trump's war authority if Republicans do not hold hearings on the conflict, they say. Joining me now is Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson. He's a member of the House Intelligence, Armed Services, and Foreign Affairs Committees.
Americans cannot afford groceries. They cannot afford rent. They cannot afford insurance premiums. They cannot afford child care. They cannot afford basic emergencies without going into debt. For millions of families, one unexpected bill is enough to throw the whole month into chaos. And on top of all that, one of the few political advantages Trump and his allies always bragged about, lower gas prices, is now slipping away as oil markets react to war in the Middle East. So naturally, people are asking the obvious question: how is any of this helping us? That question is devastating because it cuts through all the slogans. The administration wants Americans to believe that a voluntary war in the Middle East, with no clear end date, no clearly stated objective, no serious public debate, and no honest accounting of the cost, is somehow in their direct interest.
Congressman, always a pleasure. Good to see you. Are you planning to have hearings on this?
Absolutely not. We need to get back to business, Maria. We need to pass this legislation that we already have out there. As you mentioned earlier, we have all of the funding bill for DHS is sitting in the Senate waiting to be passed. This is a dangerous time for Democrats, especially Senate Democrats, to be playing games with the safety and security of this country. That DHS funding is critical right now, especially with what's going on with the domestic terror threat that we have right now, based in some part on some of the hostilities that are happening right now.
But every time officials are asked to explain that interest, they fall back on speculation, fear, and fantasy. They offer vague hypotheticals that cannot be disproven. They tell Americans that if Trump had not acted, Iran would already have dozens of nuclear weapons, and civilization itself might be at risk.
I, sit on the Armed Services Committee. I sit on the Intelligence Committee, Maria. I see this stuff all the time. I fully understand. We had thousands, hundreds and hundreds of people that crossed our southern border during the 4 years of the Biden administration that were on the terror watch list, a lot of jihadi terrorists, some of which the Biden administration chose to release into this country. So those people are here. Those terror cells are in place, and we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to find these people before something bad happens, and that's what DHS does for us.
Well, that's exactly right. I think
that is not an explanation. That is not a strategy. That is not even evidence. That is an attempt to use panic as a substitute for policy. And that is where this entire argument starts to collapse under its own contradictions. Because listen carefully to what they are saying. 6 months ago, we were told that Iran's nuclear infrastructure had been devastated
About 350 people who were encountered and then known to be on the terrorist watch list during Joe Biden's wide open border. Do your colleagues on the left not understand that? I mean, what answers do you get when you present this argument that we're in the middle of a war, we're worried about domestic terrorism, and you've got the Department of Homeland Security shut down?
I don't think they care, Maria. I honestly don't. I think that they're motivated by their own political concerns for everything that they do. I think that they hate President Trump so badly that anything he's involved in, they try to undermine it.
That key facilities had been obliterated, that their capabilities had been crippled. We were told the threat had been neutralized. Now suddenly we are supposed to believe that despite those earlier claims, the same threat remained so urgent and so immediate that another military campaign became necessary. So which is it?
Just based on that alone, I hope that it doesn't take a terror attack here in the United States to open their eyes and have them do the right thing, which is to pass this. You know, you mentioned all the ones that across the border. Those are the ones we know about. There are a lot here.
Yeah.
This is a critical time right now. I'm blowing the alarm to some extent that we got to get it together right now. There's a lot of terror attacks that happen around this country that people don't even know about because people in DHS and Department of Homeland Security stop them.
Yeah.
And we have to continue that work.
Was the danger eliminated 6 months ago, or was the earlier action ineffective? If their first justification was true, why are we back here again? And if their first justification was false, why should anyone trust what they are saying now? That is the problem with a policy built on propaganda instead of clarity. Eventually, the contradictions pile up so high that even friendly media cannot ignore them. You can only tell the public that everything is under control for so long before people start noticing that the same emergency keeps coming back, the same promises keep getting recycled, and the same people who claimed victory yesterday are back on television demanding more bombs today. What makes this even more absurd is that there was already a diplomatic framework designed to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. There was an agreement in place. It was not perfect. No international agreement ever is, but it placed meaningful limits on Iran's nuclear program and created a structure for monitoring and enforcement. That agreement existed. The issue had been addressed through diplomacy, but Donald Trump tore it up. Not because he had a better replacement ready, not because he had some brilliant long-term strategy, but because Barack Obama had negotiated it, and Trump could not tolerate allowing any policy associated with Obama to stand. That is the part that should infuriate every American, regardless of party. The problem was real. A non-military solution existed. Trump destroyed it. Then, after eliminating the diplomatic path, he left the country with a vacuum. The danger did not disappear just because he walked away from the agreement. It remained. And because he had no coherent replacement, the so-called alternative became what it so often becomes in Washington: military escalation, endless confrontation, and billions upon billions of taxpayer dollars set on fire in the name of strength.
I have asked my colleagues again and again, have we learned nothing from 25 years of war in the Middle East? I've joined together with a group of Senate Democrats to insist that the Trump administration start to make this case for the Iran war to the American public in public, rather than hiding behind classified briefings and locking those of us up in the classified room and giving us information that we're not allowed to share. I think this war is illegal. I also think it's tremendously unwise. I have asked my colleagues again and again, have we learned nothing from 25 years of war in the Middle East? More than 14,000 American troops and contractors dead.
So now we are watching the same administration that spent years attacking forever wars drag the country into yet another one. And they cannot even be honest enough to call it what it is. Half the Republican Party wants to describe it as a war. The other half insists it is not really a war, even while missiles fly, costs explode, and the risks grow by the hour. Trump himself sends mixed signals constantly. One day it sounds like the conflict is almost over. The next day, it sounds like it could continue indefinitely. 1 minute, this is supposedly a limited action. The next minute, we are told civilization hangs in the balance. There is no coherence because there is no strategy. There is only improvisation, chest thumping, and image management. And while all this confusion plays out on cable television, real Americans are paying the price. In just the first days of the bombing campaign, the Pentagon reportedly spent billions on munitions alone. Billions. in a matter of days. Think about that. Billions of dollars can appear instantly when Washington wants to fund destruction, but suddenly the richest country in the world becomes helpless and broke when people need healthcare, food assistance, housing support, or investment in schools and roads. That contrast is what makes this so politically toxic. Republicans spent the entire 2024 campaign telling voters they understood economic pain. They talked nonstop about grocery prices, rent, mortgages, energy bills, wages, and inflation. They told working-class Americans that they had been forgotten. They promised relief. They promised discipline. They promised that under Trump, the government would stop wasting money abroad while ordinary citizens suffered at home. That was the sales pitch. That was the promise. And now, look at reality. Healthcare support gets slashed. Social programs face cuts. Families are told to tighten their belts. Communities are told there is no money. Teachers are told to do more with less. Roads and bridges keep deteriorating. People delay medical treatment because they cannot pay for it. Millions live one emergency away from disaster. Yet somehow there is always enough money for another military operation. Always enough money for bombs. Always enough money for war. That is why the anger is spreading beyond party lines. When figures as different as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Elizabeth Warren are both criticizing the lack of justification, that tells you this issue has broken out of the normal partisan boxes. This is no longer just left versus right. This is about a basic question of honesty, competence, and priorities. Why is there allegedly no money for Americans who need health care, but endless money for another foreign conflict? Why are citizens told to accept sacrifice while the people in power cannot even define success? Why are we expected to trust leaders who cannot explain how this ends? But now the same man is presiding over the very kind of chaos he promised to end. The same movement that railed against war is suddenly full of people inventing excuses for one. The same people who screamed about gas prices are now defending the policies helping drive them up. The same politicians who said government should serve American citizens first are asking those citizens to once again accept sacrifice, uncertainty, and economic pain while Washington chases another mission in the Middle East. Because from where ordinary Americans are sitting, the sacrifice is moving in only one direction. They are the ones paying more at the pump. They are the ones dealing with higher costs. They are the ones watching public needs get neglected while military spending surges. They are the ones being told to stop complaining, trust the process, and rally behind a leader who cannot even keep his own story straight. This is why the media cracks matter so much. When even Fox begins opening space for these questions, when CNBC hosts press administration allies harder than the White House expects, when conservative audiences start hearing skepticism from voices they normally trust, the protective wall around Trump weakens. Because his political power depends heavily on controlling perception. It depends on convincing supporters that every criticism is fake, every failure is actually success, and every contradiction is just media bias. But that strategy gets harder when the doubts start appearing inside his own friendly ecosystem. So if you voted for Donald Trump believing he would fight for the little guy, now is the time to ask yourself a hard question. Did you elect someone to serve you? Or did you elect someone who expects you to serve him? Did you vote for relief or for more sacrifice? Did you vote for peace or for a rebranded version of the same endless disorder you were told he would end? Because deep down, people already know the answer. The gap between what was promised and what is happening is becoming impossible to ignore. And when that gap becomes obvious even on networks that usually protect him, then the real problem for Trump is not just the war itself. It is that millions of Americans may finally be forced to confront the possibility that they were sold an illusion, and that the man who promised to put them first was always putting himself first instead. I'm Olivia Johnson. This is Olivia Johnson Show. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a video. I'll see you in the next